So today I'm going to be talking to you guys about Spirit playing Reaper, and honestly guys, Spirit's probably my favorite player to watch because I really like Reaper and I'm trying to learn him, and he's honestly one of the best Reapers in the game, top 22 right now as far as this video goes. So yeah, I'd honestly say if you want to learn how to play Reaper, he's one of the best right now to just kind of get good at. So I've been putting a lot of hours kind of looking at what he does. Today I'm going to be talking mainly about this gameplay in specific. Now this game he's playing with a dive comp, and at the beginning because he is playing versus a dive comp, he doesn't really just play at the enemy front line. With Reaper, if you have 2 shield tanks or 1 shield tank like a Reinhardt or something, you can easily play at the enemy front line and just try to out DPS them with Reaper and hope that works out. But if you have dive comp, you kind of have to take high ground, go around, or again just kind of dive with the rest of your team. It's a little bit more awkward, not personally my favorite thing to do, but it can definitely work, as you see right here. As well, you want to remember that Reaper is kind of a shield breaker. If you want it to be that, you can play around corners, break shields before the enemy DPS, well, everybody except for Junkrat kind of, and do well like that, and then just push them with your team while you have shields and while the enemy don't. Or you can kind of play as a burst flanker, which I think is definitely harder, and a lot of the time you kind of just need the enemy team to not really be way too proactive and not really want to help their backline, which often happens. But those are your 2 main ways to play, and often Spirit will switch in between those on offense, on defense, and just depending on how the situation's going. Like if they're on a very slow push and nothing's happening right now, he might go into the high ground and try to flank someone, while if there's a big team fight going on, he's probably going to stay more near the front line, as that's just kind of what it does. I'm going to say overall, if you're playing Reaper, it's pretty hard for you to just take out a lot of characters by yourself, especially like DPS. It's hard for you to take that out by yourself. You kind of need a tank, you kind of need a support or something to back you up. But if you have those, you can beat really any 2v2 in the game pretty easily, I'd say, at least at medium to close range. So that is a really overall good benefit as this character. And in big team fights where there's a ton of people just running around, Reaper's damage just kind of shines right there because it is a lot higher than a lot of other characters. Now, in this game, we see him mainly trying to focus on the DPS, of course, and a little bit less on the tanks because he doesn't really have his own tanks way too much to try to just break the shields again, as I was saying earlier. At the very beginning of the first team fight, he actually focused on the Junkrat. That's a good idea because Junkrat has no self-peel and really has no way to just keep himself alive, while Soldier can, and Soldier can kind of burst you a little bit easier. Junkrat can't really 2-shot burst you, so that is a good benefit for yourself. So there you go. I guess that's kind of how you want to target people. Junkrat overall is a character you want to get out of the team fight quickly, and a lot of the times if you can just jump in with your tanks, you can just kind of screw them over. Or if you have a speed boost or anything like that with the Lucio, I think that's also a really good thing to have. Doesn't have it this game, but that could be a good idea for yourself. Right here gets trapped. Of course, you can use your Wraith form to essentially make trap be useless, but I'd wait at least halfway into the trap duration, because oftentimes people will just wait till the end of the trap, and your Wraith form runs out and the trap's still barely up there, and then they one-shot you. So yeah, don't Wraith form instantly when you do get trapped. Alright, here's trying to fight the enemy McCree, and if you are fighting a McCree, generally I'm going to say try to hide around corners, shoot once, and probably have him shoot once, and then just immediately Wraith form. Hope that he wastes his flashbang, and then if he does, you can either go in if you're full health and you think you can beat him, or you can just escape. You just want to make sure you waste that flashbang, because otherwise you are just going to simply die against that guy. Alright, here again, Spirit's going on high ground. He jumps behind them, gets on the enemy tanks. Oftentimes the enemy tanks this game are pushing up really far up, so he can just kill them almost by himself, really just instantly. Alright, there the Junkrat jumped down. Maybe a little bit too early in my taste, but whatever. And in this game we see actually him a lot going on high ground. I usually wouldn't use high ground way too much as Reaper personally, but I see that I could do a lot more with it, especially with maps like this, and especially when the enemy team doesn't have way too much stuff that really takes advantage of high ground way too much. It can just kind of win you that team fight, or win you that game, because you can get a pick, or you can just at least force the enemy team off high ground. There's just a lot of benefit that I don't really see way too much used out of Reaper's E that Spirit is using. So maybe try to just use that a little bit more to get on high ground. And most of the time when he is trying to get on high ground, he goes to a pretty far away place from the enemies. He doesn't like high ground right above them, because you can still get picked off right there. But there you go with that. I guess during the last team fight, he did actually attack the Reinhardt first. He didn't try to go into the enemy backline because he didn't have enough speed to even get there in the first place. Reinhardt was right next to him, and generally as Reaper, just attack the person that's closest to you, try to get headshots, try to get body shots, and if you get enough damage on tanks, you will lifesteal and stay alive, so you won't need support. So if you're getting like healed a ton by supports, you can probably ignore the enemy tanks a little bit and just go straight after their backline. But if you aren't getting that much healing, try to get a lot of damage on the tanks to, just kind of help you out a little bit right there. On defense, this game, of course, Reaper's playing with one healer support, and I feel like that can work pretty easily. I think it works especially well if you are playing what he's doing right now, a flanker Reaper. Unfortunately, couldn't pick off the Mercy. That just kind of happens as this character because she can go away, and it's not really any way you can follow her. But either way, I feel like he can work pretty well with a one healer because you can just get a lot of self-heal. But I think it works a lot better if you have a Ryan shield or a Orisa shield or something, because it makes it so you can run in and out of the shield, make sure that you aren't getting picked at and poked at. And during this fight, he didn't really have that quite enough, and eventually he did die, and then gets picked right there again by the Zenyatta. Pretty annoying, but whatever. Alright, here he takes high ground again, and I think the enemy Winston is going to be jumping on high ground literally all the time. But since Spirit's there, he can force him off of it, and make sure that the Widowmaker can't take high ground. And since both those characters work, decently well off high ground, that's pretty good for you. Also, Spirit can keep the enemy Hanzo off of high ground. As you see right here, he does E up to high ground, but really far back, close to his team. If he tried to high ground, at that building right in front of us, the bank, he'd probably die there, so it's not really a good idea for him to do that. Also, during this game, he is playing against a Widowmaker. The only real way you can kill her without her really just noticing you is just Eing behind her and hoping that she doesn't notice you, and then try to take her out from there. And he actually does that quite a few times, and it works out pretty well for him on the first point of defense. So I guess something I should also mention about Reaper that you want to keep in mind is that his hitbox is pretty huge, and he doesn't really have a good way to engage or disengage without his team other than playing around corners. So don't go way too ham without your win engage. Right here, he does something pretty well. He walks around the corner, which makes it always safe enough. He can ult, he can lifesteal from there, and again, the nano boost. Make sure to ask for your teammates to do it in chat. Don't just expect that the Ana's gonna nano you, because they probably won't. And try to get boosted before you go, before you ult. Just so that even though you're wasting like a second or two of nano, at least you have that, and at least you aren't gonna be picked off the second you start pressing that ult key, because oftentimes that will happen if you don't have the nano. And there you go with that. I mean, it is kind of a risky play, and you do have a big hitbox, and it's going to be hard for you, and you can be one-shot and everything like that, but sometimes you got to take that risk, and in this case for Spirit, it does work out, because most of the enemies that could one-shot him really aren't there. As well, if you have like an enemy McCree, try to ult not next to him at all, because you don't want him to flashbang you, or just don't ult until he flashbangs, because that can just screw you over super bad. Or I guess just ult so far in the enemy front line that McCree can't really get up close enough in time to ult to save his team. So I guess those are the three ways to fight that. You can't just really ult next to him, though. That just doesn't really work for the most part, unless it's just kind of dumb. And I guess also if you shoot him once and then ult, then he won't have enough time to actually flashbang you. So that's a pretty good combo too. And that's overall something you might want to try to do and try to learn, especially if you're against like a Zenyatta or something. Try to not waste your ult by at least getting one kill with it. If you can body shot someone or headshot someone and then ult, the burst is so insane that it'll almost instantly kill them, and then you can go from there. And even if like a Zenyatta ults or if something else happens, at least you got one kill with your ultimate, so it wasn't a complete waste. That's a pretty good idea to do with that item. I guess with that ability, not that item. It can be kind of hard to get in that position, but it's almost always worth it. Right here again, just on high ground, the enemy Winston again just kept trying to go on it, but he sees that quite a few of his teammates are down, so he kind of has to walk up. The Orisa is by herself right here, goes for his ultimate, unfortunately gets picked off because none of his tanks are up right there, but whatever. He's just going to back off again, wait for the enemies again, and Winston is again trying to get on high ground, but a little bit more to the left right now, which is going to hurt him a bit because he can't get there without any teammates right now because they are pushed up so much. Alright, here, not even really a flank, but he just takes out the Hanzo. Again, it's kind of hard for Reaper to actually get kills unless you're really close to them, so do always play around corners and don't really play through huge areas of line of sight. Right there just gets unluckily scatter arrow. That sucks, but whatever. That's just something you have to deal with this huge hitbox, so whatever. Against most mid-range heroes, just shoot their body at mid-range, by the way. I know that people are like, yay, shotguns, those things can't beat a lot of characters at mid-range. Sometimes they can, but don't go for headshots at all. Just go for body shots and try to land as many freaking pellets as you possibly can. Against tanks as well, if they're looking away from you, just try to shoot at the body and try to hit as many freaking pellets as you possibly can, because otherwise, you're just wasting quite a bit of the benefit of your ult. Not your ult, of your pellets. So there you go with that. The enemy Winston jumps into their back line. Luckily for him right now, he has a Zenyatta ult, so he can just ult pretty freely, gets a kill on the Hanzo, I think, maybe, because he gets antied, or gets really close to getting a kill on that. Yeah, he does kill him, and then he can just one-shot this guy in the head as well. Big team fights, I'm gonna say again, work really well in Reaper's favor, especially if they're in very closed-off areas. Some maps are really open, like Junkertown, at least the first part of it, and that can be really hard for you. And realize that even if you're playing really, really well, if the enemies just play really far away, it can be kind of hard unless you have like a counter dive comp. So don't be too hard on yourself in those situations. it's just almost impossible to do really well. But in this situation, he can do super well because he has a lot of tanks, a lot of healers, and they're in a very closed off area. Everything you want to do as this character. Doesn't push up way too close by himself because, again, he can be one-shot by the Hanzo, so it's going to be kind of hard. There are a lot of tanks that he's just trying to poke at because it's just going to charge a ton of your high ground. And, yeah, that's essentially all it's going to go on for a little bit right here. He gets ulted pretty early again, but that's okay. When you do get ulted, try to go for the headshots on people because, especially if they're a tank, try to get the headshots because you can just like 1 or 2 shot people. A lot of the tanks. If you do happen to get ulted though by an Ana and there's just a lot of squishies, just go for body shots because more pellets landing with double damage is more important than getting a few more headshots with quadra damage. That's kind of how that goes. And there we go. That's all I really have to say about Reaper and Spirit playing Reaper in this round. I think he did really well. I think he played around corners well, got up close, used high ground, countered the enemy team's high ground, and got quite a few effective flanks, but wasn't always flanking. And whenever he did flank, he almost always, got out by getting his Wraith form just at the perfect time so that the enemies couldn't really just flashbang him or pull him back or anything like that. Anyways, as always, guys, though, that's all I'm going to say about this. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like. Comment down below what you think Reaper, or what you think Spirit does really well with Reaper. If you enjoyed as well, press the subscribe button, press the notification button to see more stuff like this in the future. And as always, guys, have a wonderful day.